Welcome to the Exhaust Notes Podcast.
What is good, everyone? Welcome back to the Exhaust Notes Formula One Podcast, your new favorite Formula One podcast, your favorite Formula One podcast, favorite podcast. Hey, I've been on my, summer break, went to Tokyo for a couple of weeks, just been chilling after getting laid off from work. So I don't know, how was your guys' summer break? I feel like I'm ready to get back to Formula One again, finally.
First of all, I'd like to apologize for scoffing that you mentioned you had a layoff. And if that is an elitist behavior, I don't know what else. But then again, it's an elitist sport, so got to get in character, so to speak. But no, I'm happy for your summer break. I mean, it's kind of weird that you decided to take a summer break at your favorite driver's home country. But I mean, if I'm an Alpine fan like I am, I'm not going to France anytime soon. Todd, how are you doing?
Better than Alpine, and well, I would say better than Yuki, but he's having a hell of a season. So
he is absolutely killing it. Better
good
than
to
I
be
expected.
back.
Yeah, it is good to be back. I miss seeing you guys. Miss talking to you guys. I mean, also, I have to say, we haven't been recording, but I've still been pulling for Lando every race, thinking this will be the race he gets the win, and finally he did. So.
And listeners, if that wasn't going to break our streak of no episodes, I don't know what was. So thank you, Lando.
We pretty much just came back to prove Nick's hot take right.
Yeah.
So we could just say he finally got it. Yeah.
This is actually the last episode we're doing.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in 2025.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because this season started out as will we even watch Formula One? Max is so dominant. The rest of the field's not going to have a chance. And now, we've got Ferrari. We've got Charles Leclerc. I'm not going to really pull for Charles Leclerc full time as a fan, but when he's in Monaco, I want every driver to be able to win their home race. I feel like that is the pinnacle of being a race car driver is to win your home country's race. So good for Charles on that. Also, I don't know if you guys saw, but there was clips on social after where he just hopped on his bike and rode back home afterwards. I'm
he was following some car. Yeah, I saw that.
This guy just became my hero.
That one felt bigger than normal. If Yuki won Japan, obviously that'd be huge news. But the curse of Monaco for Chuck, that's got to feel like he's got such a monkey off his back. With all of the poles and all of the crashes and all of the massive chokes, that's a big deal.
And honestly, that could kick off a whole run for Ferrari. I would not be surprised if Ferrari all of a sudden feels like they're back in the ring and fighting just from that victory.
I mean, I think two things. I have a new favorite driver that leaves Monaco with awkwardness or grace, depending on how you want to look at it, because previously the gold medal winner was one Kimi Räikkönen going into his yacht mid-race. So this was at least a more blue-collar approach. So thank you for reaching out to the proletariat, Charles. You've done great work. Whereas that elitist Kimi Räikkönen continues to just lavishly sip champagne and caviar on his yacht.
Speaking of that, did you see Max tried to bless his heart, make a joke? He tried to make the Kimi joke after the fact, after Monaco happened. He posted a picture of him and his girlfriend on a boat, and he's I actually thought about doing this during the race, and it was he was trying to make allude to Kimi just walking out of the race and going to his boat, but it was not executed well. It was just him and his girlfriend smiling on a boat.
Yeah.
He did. Go ahead, Todd. I was just going to ask you this. There's two things I know about you as a co-host that you really appreciate. It's the girlfriends of the Formula One drivers and terrible Formula One direction. And I feel like Monaco, it was a Venn diagram that came together because I think I saw more of each respective driver's girlfriend than I did the actual drivers in a single race.
They did have a big budget for cutaways to girlfriends in Monaco.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if I am mad at it or liked it. It was so confusing because Monaco finally gave up the rights to the TV direction. I don't know if you guys know, but Monaco had the broadcast rights for years and years and years. That was part of their contract, and they finally gave that up. So Liberty had it this year, and there was some interesting new camera angles for Monaco that almost made certain corners feel like a different track. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
It was definitely it definitely felt different. I didn't know that information ahead of time, but I 100% now that you said that, I was like, oh, that makes total sense because there was
like Ratscast and the swimming pool section was different camera angles, not like vastly different, but from kind of a higher angle that made it look so much faster, and that was really cool.
Yeah,
but like the casino square was way higher and like kind of useless. Yep.
Yeah, I did not know that ahead of time, but that makes total sense. I'm actually maybe I'll go watch the highlights again because I'll probably even see other things that would lead me down that path. I thought the race itself was kind of other than, you know, obviously like with such a massive accident, which I don't know if there was talks of Ocon being out at Alpine for the Canada race prior to that, or if that was the only reason that it came up. But man, like threads, Twitter, Instagram, everything was about Ocon being out for Canada, and he confirmed that he's racing a few hours ago.
As a noted Esteban Ocon fan of the pod, I guess I'll speak up for my guy. I think it just manifested because some Twitter users said it so loud or so frequently that people just thought it was a actual verified news item. And then poor Esteban had to put a mental health message out today on his Instagram. And I'm like, my dude, I've seen your girlfriend. I've seen your lifestyle. Don't care what Joe Schmo 69 in Indianapolis thinks about your life, because guess what? You probably have a better one than he will ever have. Yeah. And it does suck because it's very much a confidence sport, and you want these guys to be at the top of not only their physical health, but also their mental health. But I wouldn't be surprised if he himself withdraws or they take him out, because at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, there's not much for Alpine to fight for unless they get a brand new car. And it's also interesting to me because both of their drivers are out of contract at the end of the year. And I'll say this, neither one of them are that inspiring if we're just looking at it from this year's perspective. They both have 1 point. They both have been rather anonymous or mediocre, and I wouldn't be surprised if they completely shuffle the deck if Alpine decides to stay in the sport.
Yeah, so who's potentially waiting in the wings there, Todd?
Well, they have Jack Doohan from previous F2 fame. He's a decent driver. Yeah, I think he'd do well in Formula One. Not like blow the doors off anybody, but I'm secretly hoping that they keep crashing into each other, and then Alpine just decides to sell the team to Andretti, because like we've talked about how much of a clown show in the past, like Haas has been, or Ferrari's pit strategy, or just like the joke teams that we've said. But man, I hope they I could say goodbye to both Pierre and SD Bestie at this point. But yeah, let's just get Andretti in there. Like since you've been gone, the amount of people that Andretti have added from serious staff, like from a staff perspective, is insane. Ex-Ferrari engineers, Formula One technical delegates, like it's like just give them the damn.
Do you feel like they can breathe for the first time now that they've got a credibility?
Well, I thought maybe once they got Congress involved, which was such a bad move for them.
Why? You think they're more of a legislative branch type of? Actually, no. Congress is legislative.
Congress is. You mean judicial,
executive? You know what? Here's an executive decision. I'm going to take the Canadian GP off from the Exhaust Notes podcast. Please respect me at this time.
Yeah.
I mean, I there's been a ton of buzz around that too. Like all of those, I agree. Like going to Congress seems like yeah, it seems like I'm going to go tell my dad that you guys are not playing fair on the basketball court, kind of childish thing to do. But I also totally understand that, you know, you're playing with billions of dollars. So there's probably a lot more of that we don't hear about in all regards of life at that level of, you know, not every team is in touch with the blue collar workers like us, like Charles Leclerc is all I can say. You know, born and raised in Monaco, Formula One driver. I mean,
There's a reason why they're called the main streets of Monaco.
How many drivers have been mugged on the streets of Monaco? I feel like it's more than 3.
What is it? A Monaco mugging sounds like a weird sexual term. Like, oh, you ever Monaco mugging, bro? It's like a double pearl necklace.
As in, you stole her watch?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about Andretti, because basically everyone in Liberty, Formula One, or FIA has come out. Not everyone. A large number of people have come out and basically said, you're not going to get a team expansion. You're going to have to buy a team, right? Well, what I've seen.
They pretty much said the only way you're going to expand as a team is if you bring in GM as OEM engine manufacturer, which, I mean, apparently, supposedly, is already the plan for 2028. But they're saying, until then, kick rocks. But even Mr. Mohammed bin Sulayem, recently changed tune and said, just go buy a team.
Yeah.
And he'd previously been the one saying, like, yeah, they're good, let them in.
So what team? I mean, I'm trying to think. Like, Renault, Alpine has basically been in Formula One since all of my lifetime, for the most part, with a few years here and there missing.
Yeah, well, they've taken 2 large breaks.
Were they large breaks? How long of a break were they?
What, they left in 76, right? Came back in the 90s, then left again in the early 2000s and came back in 20...
Oh, returned in 89.
And then they left again in the early 2000s. I think they came back like 2012, 2014, something like that.
Oh, because it was the Benetton team that...
And then there was Formula Lotus, Renault.
Yeah.
And there was like technically 2 Renault teams. It was weird.
Interesting. So it's kind of Honda-ish.
Very Honda-ish.
They
like to,
a lot of lack of commitment. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The French team? You don't say. Sacre bleu.
Wait, before we gloss over the rest of Monaco, the best moment of the whole weekend was Charles Leclerc, like, unofficially adopting Piastri. And then the biggest W on top of that was the F1 TV directors putting in his name as hyphenated Piastri Leclerc during FP1.
Yeah.
That was the funniest damn thing. I was like, oh my God, they have a sense of humor. Like,
Yep.
that was so good.
Yeah. Also, it's nice to know that if by chance Charles should leave the sport of F1, there's a future for him in, competitive diving, because there was no splash in that dive afterwards celebrating.
He probably weighs like $130 soaking wet. So
yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. Perfect form already there. He just needs to get up on the high dive, and obviously Fred Vasseur went in the way I would, just cannonball. So,
Fred Vasseur just sounds like a fun uncle that you're like, this dude's bland and boring on the surface, but then he's seen some things and he's willing to tell you the things he's seen when your mom and aunts are not around. But I'll say this. I think the other thing is him, in this case, Charles Leclerc, adopting the dog has also done wonders for him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I've ever been captivated by an animal-related acquisition from any sport that I can think of, except for maybe
What's his
Michael
dog's
Vick
name again?
Leo.
Isn't it Leo? Yeah.
Leo.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of Fred Vasseur, you got to give him props too, because he snuck in to celebrate Lando's win in Miami, which was awesome.
They had a ceremonial exchanging of the hats, because I thought I saw Zach Brown wearing a Ferrari hat as well at some point in the near past.
Well, that was their blue weekend, right? Miami was the blue Ferrari.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Also, let's talk about that blue. That for those listening and not watching, air quotes on the blue. Ferrari had like the most minimal amount of blue on their car they could possibly put on a car. And granted, I love seeing any budge in the scarlet fever they have, but it seems like a missed opportunity to not actually do like a car, like a livery to go with the uniforms that they had. Like, I know they added that touch of light blue, but
It
nobody's
looked like
going to
a
notice
Spider-Man
that.
skin, right? Like a Spider-Man costume. Like, I don't want that.
To be honest, it was more than I thought they were gonna.
Fair, but
Really?
I thought we would get like blue mirrors or a blue rear wing, and it'd be like, oh, that's the blue Ferrari. Remember what they did in Monza 2 years ago, or was it last year?
Yeah.
When they did the whole yellow thing, and then literally the rear wing just had yellow Ferrari on it. That was it.
Yeah.
It blew my mind how little blue it had on that car. Yep, that green lets me know we're back.
But I was this might be a hot take, but I was more offended just because I knew Ferrari was gonna Ferrari it, and it would be a splash of blue on a red car. I was more offended at Monaco's McLaren special livery, and don't get me wrong, that livery was awesome. I think it was sweet, but one, it felt like weird timing because it was a week too late. Do it a week prior when they were celebrating Ayrton Senna at Imola, where he passed.
Yeah.
It was a cool livery, but the entire time leading up to that, they were teasing the Monaco collection for McLaren, and they made all of the stuff, which also was very cool, but they made it red and white. They made it like the Marlboro car. They made it like the best livery of all time. If you're going to tease that, do that. Give us the Marlboro. I know they can't put Marlboro on the car. I get it. But you could give us the Chevron red and white.
Yeah, I agree.
MP4 Ford livery.
I think it's such a tough thing to not connect Senna to Monaco, right? And then you're like I feel like they were like, well, we've got to connect, we've got to bring Brazil into this mix. So obviously that's where the livery came from. You know, his helmet, and like, you know, a lot of the Brazil flag, you know, kind of, we've seen this before, right? But to your point, like both of those things were like, it's almost like two different teams at McLaren working on these things going forward, right? And that Monaco collection was really dope. I mean, it's one of the best ones that any of the teams have done in years, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And so like they should have just done both of them for both weekends somehow. That way, at least you have like, you're going, or, you know, like the livery should have been on the car for 2 weekends, maybe even, right? Because it's like you are celebrating, everybody's celebrating him the week prior, and like everybody talks about him in Monaco, but like I think the thing that happened that was weird was in between Italy and Monaco was like the anniversary of his like crazy, you know, lap of God, whatever. So you also have like this, I'm sure like the teams that are making that stuff at McLaren were like, what do we even do? We've got 4 different things we need to celebrate within 2 weeks. How do we celebrate all of this and connect it all? You know, like they're probably just lost in the mix and just needed some cohesiveness.
I was gonna say, this is where they borrow from Nike and do the What the Senna collection and just have different variations.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I also thought that it was interesting that Seb Vettel noted, what would you call him? Apparel entrepreneur. He's coming for your throne, Lawrence Stroll. Like he had his Senna collection as well. And I thought that was pretty tastefully done. And it still speaks a lot to the reverence that he has, not only amongst the previous generations, but this current generation, because I imagine the way that these young kids have been talking about them, I don't think that many of them were alive for his heyday or his pomp and circumstance, but he still holds such a reverential tone. And I'm wondering if that's going to be a sign of things to come in terms of, are we also going to get, I don't want to say ham-fisted collections, but some of it did feel a little forced. Like we have to do this now. And I think with the actual summer break that we usually have in Formula One, like I think that would have been the best opportunity, because they also have to, as a sport, find a way to maintain headspace in a lot of fans' heads, because we're going to forget about them once they have that, 6-week break in the middle. It's almost as long as us going in between episodes.
It is.
Oh, self-deprecating shots are the best. But why not put that livery either in Imola, again, celebrating like where Ayrton died, or save it for Brazil? Could you imagine that livery going around Brazil? Like, they would lose their minds.
Yeah, I mean that's the miss, right? Like, I think because Seb's stuff was really nice too. Like, I thought those shirts were super dope. I mean, yeah, it was also really cool to see Seb at Imola in the old McLaren, right? Like, that was just like, I had goosebumps the whole time watching it. Just like,
yep.
I mean, this is like childhood for me. So I felt like I feel like they were just like trying to connect these dots that they saw out there, rather than having somebody say, let's slow down a minute. Let's back it off. Let's think about this. You run this livery in Brazil. You have a second round of merch to sell. Like, you know, like, it's all about profit.
And then do the Marlboro livery do the Marlboro stuff in Monaco.
Stuff. Yeah. Like, I mean, if you really want to get crazy with it, work with Seb to do two of them together. Right. And then you have an anti-smoking message in the Marlboro with the Marlboro livery. We all go nuts because it's like, yeah, fuck big tobacco. Yeah. Fuck, you know, like, and then we buy a bunch of merch, and then we get to do the same thing when they run in Brazil again. Like, to me, like, it feels like these are the things that I also feel about the rest of motorsports too. Like, you know, like the generic snapback caps, the stuff that like has been like the core, just like deliver the cheapest, worst experience ever to fans. And I get that it's expensive to do this stuff, but like, we are in a new time where, you know, Lewis is, you know, walking, you know, Met Gala, you know, like, people are like into high fashion stuff on a level that we've never seen before. And there's all this in between space where I just want to pay for a good shirt. Like, I bought some of the Lewis Murakami stuff months back, right? It's just nice. I was just going to bring that up. Know? It's like,
and Danny Rick's got his thing he's been doing for several years. I have a couple of those shirts. They're really high quality shirts.
Yeah.
But anything actual F1 related is like a jersey that's like, they just glued on.
But I think this is also like something we've alluded to in the past. Like, there's room for someone like Nike or someone like Adidas to like really step up. You know, Puma is there, but their deal is with Ferrari. You know, like, I know Puma has branding deals or licensing deals with Mercedes and BMW, but like, they never tie them to the sport. It's always just kind of sits on the shelves, and it's like, oh, you're a BMW fan, so you buy a Puma BMW shirt. But if you were actually to go and like have Puma, or have someone on the teams that are running Puma, that are sponsored by Puma, say, hey, this is why we have this relationship. This is why these are the reasons why, you know, like, I'm a fan of some of the, you know, like, one of the, up until the last few years, now he races for Ford in Le Mans, but like, Joey Hand is a racer from Sacramento who raced BMWs and raced the most famous liveries on BMWs, the Yokohama like black, red, and white scheme, the red, white, and blue M theme, raced for BMW as a manufacturer driver. And like, he's one of the reasons, like, I don't own a BMW. I don't see myself owning a BMW anytime soon, but I would go buy a t-shirt to support him if they connected that story.
And I think also Puma is the perfect apparel partner for something like Formula One, because the limited exposure I've had to Formula One, they have to be the prettiest girl at the ball. And I think if you include the likes of a Nike or an Adidas, they're not going to be that. They're going to be the secondary in that relationship. And I don't know if the egos that are associated with both sides of that potential partnership would allow it. So I think we're going to be stuck with Puma for a while. Now, that being said, I thought I saw a little bit of traction around the fact that Adidas was making a genuine play for Mercedes. So cautiously holding my breath there, because that's the first domino to fall, and that's a big domino, so to speak, because there's a German soccer national team sized hole in Adidas's current portfolio. And I do think Mercedes AMG might be the most dominant German team that we have from a sporting sense right now in their culture. So it makes too much sense on paper.
Yeah, that is interesting. All right, what's next?
We talked about Alpine. We talked about what's going on. So Well,
Did we talk about your boy? Also, for those listening, Rose's screen name is Free Esty. So I would like to.
It's pronounced Fresty.
Fresty. Gotcha. Fresty.
Let's talk about this. I'll give you both the victory laps. What do you guys want to say about not just Lando, but also Oscar Piastri in terms of the ascension that they're having as a team? Because right now, I think they're as good as any of the teams that are in the top three, because it feels like a three-way race right now. And I say that, and now inevitably there'll be like an 11 race winning streak that Max is just going to unleash on the world, and we're going to laugh about this episode. But in this moment today, dare I say it, we may have a competitive constructors race at the minimum.
I think we need to slow our roll on that a bit. Like, we've had a couple of off races, not even off races for Red Bull necessarily. Like, Max was still up towards the pointy end for both. And then I think just Monaco was a perfect storm of things. It's not like he was off pace wise. It's just Monaco. You can't pass. And like the Sergio's wreck pretty much made it so that they had to switch tires because everybody else did. And
but this is where we're going to push back a little on this time, because last year, when I think I had the hot take of he's going to win almost every single race, or he is going to win every single race, you guys are quick to say, hey, bro, that's even an absurd take, because of the fact that in Formula One, you're going to have weekends like this where nothing seems to work for that team. We didn't have that last year. So are we going to get 2 years worth of bad luck now, so to speak, for Red Bull? Because if that is the case, that feels viable. That feels like something.
It's not domination, but it's not domination.
And if it's not domination, that means it's competitive.
I mean, I actually think that so I think that we can all agree that McLaren, outside of Max, McLaren has the two most exciting drivers with potential wise, right? I think like if you started a team fresh, looking at age, looking at like current performance, you're probably going to go with Lando and Oscar as your drivers. There's plenty of reasons why you would go for other drivers if you're in the midst of multiple seasons, if you know all those things. But like, just take all that off the table. Like, who do you put in your car right now? It's probably those two outside of Max. And you know, like Sainz, Leclerc might be close third, fourth or something. But I think the other thing about just the improvement that the team has made and that the cars have made for both of those guys, it's compounding their abilities right now in a way that we haven't seen really since Red Bull and Max started their run, right? Like, I think that's the thing that is exciting about it. I still don't have a whole lot of faith in Ferrari in terms of, you know, like where they land in all this. But I think that with Charles winning, he's obviously another capable driver. If the car is capable of winning on another track, maybe. I think it comes down more to their pit strategies, which we've, you know, poked fun at for the last 2 or 3 seasons. But I think that also it's one of those things where once you realize that, you know, once you believe that Goliath can be beaten, whether it's true or not, like it puts new fire under you to make it happen. And I think that's like the most exciting part about all this, because now you have like essentially 2 teams that at the beginning of the season, us included, did not believe that they could compete with Max and Red Bull. And, you know, we would obviously, Checo's talented, but we would also just say like Checo can't compete with Max and Red Bull. So like, we're not going to really even give him. Exactly. So for me, I think that that's actually the most exciting part. I think it is going to be competitive. I think you're still going to have Max dominate this season by the end of the year. But, you know, there's more power in belief than there is in engineering, in my opinion. Like, you could put somebody out there like Alonso in a car that cannot win, and he ends up on the podium.
But will he? That, listeners, was the Pep Boys "But Will He" segment of the week.
Yeah.
We're going
But
to speak
is he?
sponsors into existence for the back half of this.
There we go.
Now, I was just going to ask you guys both this because you guys know I love a good over-under. Over-under 2.5 more non-Max Verstappen race winners this year.
Over.
Really? That's
Wait,
it.
you're saying over, and you're saying it's not
that's what I was going to say.
competitive.
Get him, Nick. Get him.
Whoa.
But did he?
I think that they are closer than they have ever been before, so that if Max and team isn't perfect, there's more of a chance that they can pick up the odd win here and there. I think it will overall be a less dominant season than it was last year. But last year, let's not forget, he won the championship by himself.
Yeah.
So it is going to take a little bit of Checo to win the Constructors this year. That being said, I don't think that Checo has – I think he has fallen down his downward spiral already this year. Like we've seen the last – God, what? Miami was bad. Imola was bad.
To quote Taylor Swift in a sense.
Yeah. He is definitely in his Bottas era, which is terrible because I still think he has the talent. He's just in the chamber of fear that I've alluded to a million times, knowing that he is on borrowed time in that race seat. And he's going to end up somewhere else.
I mean, I don't mean to be contrarian to every point you make, but everything I've read is he seems to be locked on for at least one more year, which to me does not make sense. And granted, I don't know the inner workings of the torture chamber that you've alluded to, but I would think, given the precedence of how they handled Albon, how they handled Gasly, he would not be long for this world, that he continues to just stay there. Is there a safety in the fact that he is as inept as he is? And does Red Bull think once again that the constructor can be won by one racer and one racer alone?
I think they'll finally see that this year last year they didn't have to care about it because Max scored 7,000 points and won both trophies by himself. This year they're actually going to have somewhat of a battle. I still think Red Bull gets the constructors. They've already got a pretty sizable gap after, what are we in, six or seven races deep?
Oh, I think we're more than that, but keep going. I'll look
maybe up. Maybe 8 or 9. We're approaching summer break, whatever it is. I still think they'll win the constructors, but I think it'll be a lot closer. We actually will have a quote unquote battle for the constructors going forward. And now that it appears that McLaren's car is good across a wide range of tracks and Ferrari also might be in that same vein, they're going to be picking off that second, third, fourth, fifth from potentially Checo every week. So they're going to get even closer. I still think they go 2 for 2 on the trophies this year, but I think it'll be a lot closer on the constructors. And I would take the over in races 1 because there's always chaos in Formula 1. And I would say we have another Sainz win or another Piastri or Lando win, maybe even Chuck before the end of the year.
We have a Checo win.
I don't think so.
No, because all of his wins last year came at the beginning of the season too, and then it was crickets for the rest of the year.
So right now there are 24 points between Red Bull, who's in first place, and Ferrari, who's in second place. And bringing up third is McLaren, and their gap to Ferrari is a lot bigger than Ferrari's gap to Red Bull. So definitely something to consider.
Again, they started the year with a shit car, so not to defend
the way
my
they've been
boys.
picking up points, I think right now I would think that McLaren looks a better bet to unseat Red Bull than I think Ferrari does, because to your point, we haven't hit that special Ferrari part of the year where, like you mentioned with Formula One, chaos is everyone's favorite drug.
I mean, even just in Monaco, right? Like, there's no room to pass in Monaco, so it would have never happened. But Oscar was way faster on those last. I feel like they run like 5 more laps, 10 more laps, and like that's a really competitive race coming down to the end. Same thing about Lando and Max and Imola, right? Like, I mean, I legitimately think Lando could have caught him had he not had that one mistake. 10 laps to go, he locked up and it threw him back, a second or two. So I think it's definitely over. I think it's going to be much closer. I actually think that all of this begs the question, does Checo? Obviously, Checo's a capable driver, but do Helmut Marko and the rest of Red Bull believe that? Or do they think that Yuki has more potential? I mean, Yuki's 10th in the points right now, which is bananas to think that he's 10th in the points. I don't think that it's far-fetched that like he could potentially have a chance to get into the Red Bull seat before the season is over if Checo doesn't like step it up somehow.
I just don't think this year. I think Red Bull is somehow past their like mid-season dropping thing after Kvyat and then Albon, was it Albon and then Gasly? Or no, Gasly and then Albon.
Yeah.
I think they're just saying like, okay, that nothing has ever come from that good. But that's kind of my point when we were talking about it earlier. It was like, I think Checo is on borrowed time, and I think someone else is in that second Red Bull seat next year. My guess would be Sainz, but man, I'd be so pumped if Yuki got that second seat.
It might be. And I was going to ask you guys this, now that you both mentioned the fact that we've escaped the curse of Charles, we've escaped the curse of Lando. What driver would you guys most be excited for in terms of getting their first win? Would it be Yuki? Would it be somebody like an Oscar Piastri, who I think maybe he hasn't earned the hardship yet to have a curse, but I see him more likely to pick up his first podium than I do any other driver now.
Well, he's won a sprint race, so I don't know if that counts or not.
Let's eat at the adults table. Let's not sit at the kids table.
Yeah. I would agree, though. I mean, he's kind of I almost feel like with the car that he has, he should be able to win a race. Like, yeah. I think by the end of the year, he wins a race.
I agree.
I gave you guys the out to give Hülkenberg his podium, but you still didn't bite. So how dare?
Well, you said win. You said race win, and then you switched it to podium.
See, I'm in preseason testing form right now. I got to iron these kinks out.
You really got to work on it.
This is what happens when you take summer breaks in the middle of winter
season.
Break. Yeah.
It's summer in Australia at that moment, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, no, isn't it winter? Approaching winter time in Australia?
God damn it.
Because they're on the other side of the I was okay. If you just open it up to podium, my next most excited I would be is probably Alonso getting another win as the longest span between wins. But if we're going podium, I like Hulk on the podium would be my number one for sure.
I mean, technically, Ollie Behrman has the same amount of points as Hülkenberg, so.
Shot. That's kicking him in when he's down.
I would like to see Hülkenberg actually on the podium, but the I don't know. The Gunther Steiner fan in me doesn't want to see Haas win anything without him either. So,
speaking of, did you see that he's been kind of on a media tour lately and throwing shots, like in the funniest Gunther way possible? But he was on that other American podcast that I won't plug because they already have enough help. But he did an interview with them and it was really good. He should be in media, as awkward as it is. It's so good. Yeah.
I mean, I guess good time to switch gears to another awkward media speaker who we recently lost in the basketball world, Bill Walton, right? Like, I feel like having someone who is kind of the wild card is, I mean, the worst of races will be entertaining if Gunther is, either on broadcast or trackside, because you could just imagine him, walking the staging lane, with all the celebrities and
I don't know,
smashing doors and all of that stuff.
I was going to say this. I mean, for all of their attempts to kind of shove Danny Rick down our throat last year with his mega cast,
he's immediately came to mind for me. That's They need to do it going through. Exactly. That's
He's
perfect.
the guy, because if nothing else, Gunter Steiner is not necessarily prepping for a Formula One future based on the spirit and intent of his commentary. So yeah, why not? Like, he's got nothing left to lose. Like, he's made his money for a lot of people. He's probably the most memorable principal that came out of the Drive to Survive era. He's hilarious. He's poignant when he needs to be, and he has a self-awareness that would lead me to believe he would be very well suited for that role.
Speaking
100%.
of Gunther, I feel like that's a direct connection via tiny Fiat car to talk about Matteo Binotto potentially joining Aston Martin next year.
I have that up on my screen right now because that popped in my head and I was like, wait, was that official or was that just rumor
It
mill?
seemed like official last week, and now it's like he's in talks.
Yeah. I hope we get Harry Potter back. He built a really fast car. And if he can lend that speed to Aston Martin, then we'll have one Aston Martin car in the top 10 every week, next year instead of 0.5.
I don't want him to go there because Lawrence Stroll is going to bully him, and he's going to try to make that fast car for his son, and I don't like that. So stay away, Mattia.
Speaking of which, I have to give this plug, but Rocket Powered Mohawk, he's a personality on YouTube that's very boisterous. He's not for everyone's taste, but he recently did an episode on Lance Stroll. I guess Lance Stroll did an interview on a podcast about buying, or there was a snippet that came to light of him talking about why they have certain rules in Formula One and preventing people from buying their way into Formula One. And he did Rocket Powered Mohawk did a whole dissertation on Lance's upbringing and results and how he actually got into Formula One. And I highly recommend checking that out if you're a resident Lance Stroll hater like me. Shout out Iron Trev. It's very good. It's very good.
I don't condone the Canadian on Canadian hatred that you just perpetuated out there, Todd. So you're warned. Be warned, sir. Come on. Edmonton's in the Stanley Cup semifinals. This is the year.
And if it's not the Rangers, I want to see a Canadian team win the cup. So,
I mean, well, we can just talk about Lance. So we can take away the Canadian aspect of it and just talk about Lance being disconnected from the reality of the, family hierarchy that he comes from. Speaking of which, this is totally off topic, but I was just on Threads earlier, and I don't want to get it too far into the politics, but John Lennon's son, is basically talking about how wokeism needs to end. Like, my brain has malfunctioned trying to understand this world we live in at this point.
Here's a segment for late night TV show. Pick your favorite aging celebrity and ask them for their definition of woke. Just let them do that, and then have the commentary after the fact.
Yeah,
it could be like a new mean tweets segment. When they did the mean tweets.
Yeah,
they could just have that.
Yeah. I mean, from what I saw, the highlight of the comments was like 2 or 3 people being like, "Wow, I can't believe he doesn't like this stir fry I'm making on the stove right now."
I used to share studio space with Sean Lennon.
Really?
For a very, very short time in the early 2000s.
That's
my
crazy.
Sean Lennon anecdote is anytime I listen to the Jurassic 5 debut album, he has like an awkward 15-second interlude in that, and I can't hit. I keep forgetting that there's no 30-second skip in my music apps, so I have to sit with it every time.
By the way, Todd, how was the show?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Nice. My son was having a great time until about 10 o'clock, and we went on at 10:30 or something. So he was like real tired and crabby, and like 2 songs into our set, he was like telling my wife like, "I want to go outside." And he's like, "No, but your dad's playing on stage. I want to go outside." So he missed a little bit of our set, but
overall, he had a good time. It did get me playing guitar somewhat regularly again.
Nice.
And I am to loop it back into Formula One. I am determined to learn the Formula One theme song on guitar.
Amazing. That'll be our new intro music when you're ready for it.
Oh, that's going to be a while.
I'll write a song whenever I'll write the song.
Okay.
I mean, at this rate, that's only a couple episodes away anyway.
Yeah,
Todd.
I mean,
So next spring break.
So 2026, expect a new theme song for.
We're kind of like Andretti, you know. We're right there on the wings, waiting, and you only hear from us truly once in a while, and there's never any guarantee that.
But there's no Alpine that people can create rumors about that's saying, "Hey, they're going to buy them off."
Yeah.
We are the Alpine,
and simultaneously the Andretti.
Yeah,
we're going to buy ourselves.
Sponsor us, please.
There's so much other stuff that happened that I'm like racking my brain for in the last 6 weeks. That
you know what we didn't talk about at all, and now not that there's been any progress made on this front. Adrian Newey.
Apparently, there's rumors currently that there may or may not have been a contract signed in Monaco last week for him to go to the Scuderia.
I mean, if that's the case.
But gardening leave, he's not working for the team until next
2026, right?
Well, 2025.
I thought he had a unique arrangement that he could go into the next season.
Yeah, it would be like middle of 2025.
I mean, that's still pretty like Adrian Newey, Lewis, and Charles. There's a pretty powerful trio compared to.
No, and not only that, you're forgetting the architect of all this, Freddie V. Freddie Victory.
I mean, yeah.
Our Lady of Freddie Victory. He is becoming my favorite team principal.
Yeah,
very quickly.
He's been awesome.
Oh God! Another thing, Lewis Hamilton was just on Hot Ones.
How was it? I didn't see it.
There was one question that Sean Evans asked him, like, you've talked about being at one with the car and like almost being like, you know, man and machine as one, like not even
it's an extension
about driving.
Yeah.
And he said, what's the antithesis of that? Like, have you ever had moments like that in your career? And he said, right now. Like, that's how much he hates the current Mercedes car. I thought that was.
Oh, I thought he was just talking about the fact that he can't handle spiciness, like right now at this moment.
I mean, I think he was trying to do a double entendre there, but like, I think he was throwing like subtle shade at Mercedes.
I mean,
because he also recently made comments about like, yeah, of course Georgia's gonna like outperform me in qualifying because they're building the car around him, for lack of a better word. Like, paraphrasing.
So two things for me. Like, I think we've all seen the clip now of Toto on his scooter driving by as Lewis is signing like a Ferrari hat, and like they put different soundtracks to it. I think the funniest one was The Office. I would have gone with the Benny Hill, but you know me. Anytime I can ham fist the Benny Hill theme song into something, I will. Then the other thing I saw, which was specific to the Hot Ones interview, is there was a call for them to reduce the spiciness because Lewis was British, and they said a British person's spice level should be at a 5 compared to the regular 9 that a normal Hot Ones contestant is on. So I thought that was pretty funny.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Like,
I don't think his body would be used to, let's say, how many chicken wings do you think an average person sits or eats while sitting at Hot Ones? Like 16?
Yeah.
No, I mean,
well, no, there's like 10, right? 10 of the bottles.
It's 10 wings, but they most of the celebrities on there just take like a little nibble, which smartly so because the last few were mega
not
hot.
our boy Conan.
Did he do? I didn't watch it yet either. I got to watch it. Did he do like cauliflower or vegan wings or something?
Oh yeah, it's some sort of vegan.
Yeah,
and they joke about that. I think as well. I've only seen clips. I haven't watched the whole thing, but
yeah,
these guys are fine-tuned machines. Bar the bad pun, but like ingesting and introducing basic level chicken into their high-performing bodies. I'm sure that they would react to that like Montezuma's Revenge times 1,000.
Yeah.
No, I feel like there's a few that are like super uptight and like strict on their diets, but I feel like most of them are just like I'll have the burger, but I'm only going to have a third of the burger.
Or I'm not going to.
Well,
eat
I mean, current timeline, you know, like Hong Kong has banned American poultry recently for bird flu. There's 3 or 4 actual human cases of bird flu from like Michigan and some other place in the last week. So if I'm a professional athlete of any kind, I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to stay away from American chicken wings just in case.
I'm going to have them for dinner, I think.
Yeah.
Roll the dice. Let's live on the edge.
I'm only going on a chicken nuggets diet. Shout out to Morgan Spurlock.
Oh, R.I.P. Sky Point.
Yeah, man.
I'm going to pour some ketchup and barbecue sauce out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, that's such a crazy one. But yeah, rest in peace. That's. I don't mean to laugh, but
Yeah, I mean, we've already laughed at you losing your job, Nick. So it's only fair that you can.
yeah,
laugh
we
at a
did
man's
start
demise.
we did start off that way. So yeah. Oh man, now I forgot what I was going to ask. Oh, the Ferrari, the Adrian Newey to Ferrari. Do you because he's still going to build the Red Bull car, right? They're working on a Red Bull sports car or whatever.
Whatever his hypercar project is. Yeah.
Hypercar. Do you think that, like, how detrimental to the Red Bull team do you think that would be if he left?
I don't
Ferrari?
think it'll be immediately detrimental to them because he's like been kind of an eccentric for a while, and he's not like their chief technical officer or whatever.
Yeah.
He's not in charge of the whole program. He just kind of pulls people aside and it's like, hey, this will be better this way.
Yeah.
And then like adds his little elements. At least that's from what I understand, right? He could be the magic behind the car. But I don't think it's going to be hugely detrimental because they have a lot of smart people there, and it will be 2-3 years before we really see changes to like changes that he would implement elsewhere that would hurt, help the other team, thereby hurting Red Bull. I don't think we're going to see. And if I was him, like, why would I go to another team other than pure bravado, legacy, whatever? Like, I'm going to go help Ferrari win a championship. I don't think he would. Does he really want to go work 120 hours a week at almost 70 years old?
I mean, I don't think. I think you kind of already answered that. Like, I don't think he's a grinded out type of person. I think that you have that expertise in your corner kind of person. He's been around the sport forever, right? Like, he's made some waves for a lot of different people, and I think the same thing about Fred Vasseur, right? Like, he's got 15 years in Formula One, 20 years in Formula One now, or something like that. I think you probably have. It reminds me a lot of like a Niki Lauda, right? Like, you have that person's presence in the garage when the car's being, tweaked for every race or for practice or whatever. And now you can benefit because the guy changing the tires, who is like lowest on the totem pole of Formula One engineers, is now like able to talk to somebody directly. Those guys don't have, this is just the way I assume it works, but like, you probably, if you're at Mercedes, for instance, right now, or if you're at Red Bull right now, the guy that's, lowest man on the totem pole probably doesn't have direct conversation with Christian Horner, with maybe even, Helmut Marko, maybe even like not directly with Max, right? They probably filter information through one person. Maybe that's Adrian Newey, maybe not, but like having somebody like that can look and see what a younger, less experienced person is doing, and just like instantly say, oh, we've already seen that this is a better way to do that, or this is a better way to think about doing that, just gives you so much more
Confidence.
power as a group, I think. And I think that's pretty much like the thing that I was talking in the Discord today with some of the guys about like the sneaker world right now. We have a lot of this like very young, like talented people But there's a disconnect because a lot of the companies have been letting go of like middle of the road or higher up, but not quite C-level executives. And if you don't have that free flowing information and the comfort for somebody that is an intern to get the highest level of information that they can, then you end up with problems in between, right? And I think that's where Formula One, a lot of these teams, we talked about it too. Like I think like from a, being a baseball fan and being a Giants fan, like you see it, the Giants always bring back, like they've got the team of coaches that are out there right now are, I think there's six or eight guys that played on the team in my lifetime. So you've got like the generational gap is filled because you don't have, the coach is 70 plus, but you want to be, if you're 22, you want to be talking to somebody that's 35, 40. If you're 30, you want to be talking to somebody that's 50 because that's where you watched and grew from those people. And I think my assumption is that Formula One can kind of like have that hierarchy, but also have a lot of glass ceiling, so to speak, to keep the conversations from distracting, think of all the, hey, not right now, I'm working memes that you see for, kids and stuff. It's like, you just, like my dog, like I can't give her all my attention all the time, but somebody should come, take her out to go for a walk so I don't have to, because I got to work on important stuff.
Yeah. What do you think the probability is that we see him signed before the end of this year?
I mean, I think we'll have some sort of information, whether it's, hey, I'm not going to sign right now. Like, you kind of already can tell that he's out, right? Like there's no reason all this other stuff would have happened. And we saw like the commitment to working on the hypercar, right? It's like he has to keep things kosher to still move forward with Red Bull in that aspect. And I think to the conversation we were having earlier about Fred Vasseur, as much as these guys compete, most of them are all such good friends that, I wouldn't be surprised if, we get some sort of, hey, not right now, but this is going to happen. And I think normally, even with Lewis and the Mercedes car, there's been buzz around like, maybe Lewis shouldn't even be in the car for the rest of this year, right? If he's going to complain so much about it. And it's like, yeah, but you also realize that Lewis is one of the greatest drivers of all time. So even if he's not winning, he might complain a lot on the radio, but it's super valuable still to this day to have Russell be able to like go back and forth with him, to like compare notes, to all those things help Russell more than you can get from bringing a young driver in that, ultimately will cause problems for the rest of the year until they get it figured out and, move to next year.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not convinced he's actually going to sign for another team. I think he's put in too much time. He's been too successful. And other than him wanting to grandstand and maybe win another championship for Ferrari or somebody else, I don't think he's doing it.
No, that's why I think if it is anybody, it's going to be Ferrari, because they want to have the dream team that they can point back to in terms of this would be the quote-unquote dream team era for them, because it's been a long, for Ferrari standards, mediocre last couple of years, right? Like, how long would you describe this mediocrity that Ferrari is experiencing? And I put those terms in quotation marks.
Coming up on 20.
Yeah. So, I mean, they need a shot in the arm. So I kind of am taking both of your opinions. If he does sign, it's, to me, there's only one logical place, and he can share some of that load, because if, and I put this in big terms of if he can design a car that allows Lewis Hamilton to help, if not lead Ferrari to victory, they're made men in the sense that they enter that final level of being made. Like, there's truly nothing that anybody can say to them because of the fact that Ferrari is such a sacred cow. And if they're the ones that can bring it back to prominence, it's a wrap. They're the GOATs.
Yeah. I mean, both of those guys will be, around the sport for the rest of their lives. They'll be, they are GOATs already, right? But there's something about Ferrari and, it's kind of legacy, right? Like, I think that, what is it, 16 or 17 championships, they're basically, what are they? They're double anybody else, right? Like McLaren has McLaren and Mercedes and
I mean, how many
Williams.
does Red Bull
Williams
have, right?
have like 8?
Yeah.
No, I think Williams has 11.
Oh yeah, Williams has more. Yeah. So, I mean, even that though, right? Like, it's kind of like there's something about that that's appealing to like we talk about it. Like if you're the guy that brings Williams back into the fold, it's a really monumental thing. But with Ferrari, there's so much history of winning that I feel like, I don't understand it personally. But I think like I would relate it to like baseball and like all these guys that want to go play for the Yankees. And like, it's like, you've got a full beard. Why do you want to go shave? Like, I don't get it. But like, they just want to wear pinstripes as if the Yankees are the only team that has
Yankees,
pinstripes.
Knicks, Lakers, Cowboys.
Yeah,
Insert your
they all
favorite
kind of have
legacy
that.
franchise or college even, right? Texas football.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I can't really. So pre Lewis, Fred Vasseur, I don't think there would be appeal for me personally if I'm in anybody's seat in Formula One to say I'm going to go to Ferrari to help be a part of this comeback. Now I feel like you've got clearly you're getting growth out of the car. Lewis is going to be driven to win that next title. And I think if you're gonna break Schumacher's record, then if you're gonna do it, like people will be more forgiving if you do it in a Ferrari. So you probably have more of that fan base wanting to see it happen. But with Newey, I think that it's hard to understand the behind the scenes stuff too, right? Like we don't really know what goes on with the guys that aren't on camera or having conversations regularly, doing interviews all the time, that we can feel where they're at. But I think like, he seems to be one of those guys that he's just about the sport, and being able to build a hypercar with Red Bull and being able to bring back Ferrari and whatever other bucket list things he has, whether, it's 20 hours a week or 100, he seems like the type of guy that just wants to add it to the list of accomplishments he already has.
Very much so. He's on the victory lap of his career, and it's all passion projects, and he's earned that right. So,
yeah.
Speaking of victory laps, should we end it?
I think so.
Let's do it. You can find me on Instagram at RoadM13, same on Threads. You can find me on OnlyFans as the Monica Ness Mugger. Todd, where can they find you?
You can also find me on Instagram at dadshoe _ or dadshoe what is it? dadshoe.jpg. On Twitter and everything else, dadshoe _ JPEG. Most importantly, find me in the Discord, linked in the comments below.
Yes, you can find me at Nick Engvall on all the platforms, and you can find Exhaust Notes FM everywhere as well. And we appreciate y'all. We'll catch you in the next episode. Peace.